Hello, everybody. Dr. Mel here for our exclusive Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube Live, cracking the code of teacher resistance, discovering pockets of resistance, and navigating the spectrum of resistance types. So, in the depths of our subconsciousness, some of us have such a strong connection with toxicity that we're experiencing in our schools and even in other spaces, that to learn how to navigate our own emotional triggers and agitators that come up when we experience that resistance, especially when it's resistance to our equity work, is more challenging sometimes than actually doing the work of equity. It's not until you're able to face that resistance head on that you're actually going to be able to navigate it with more ease rather than hiding behind your emails, writing up staff who are not compliant, or even engaging in this reciprocity of toxicity. So today's live is going to unpack the journey of either aspiring or evolving culturally responsive leaders, as we're going to break down today how to identify those pockets of resistance. And then we'll come back next week to really discuss how to navigate those different types of resistance. So I want to begin this conversation asking you to drop something in the chat. Hey to everybody that's popping in. If you see me looking at two screens, I've got my LinkedIn, my Facebook, and my YouTube crowd here on my computer. And then I've got my lovely Instagram family here on my phone. So you'll see me kind of toggling back and forth. But give me a hey, what's up if you are watching. I can't hit the button and say hey, but I'm saying hey to you now. So thank you for hopping in. But I want you to drop this in the chat. Say me, raise your hand, whatever you do to reply to this question. How many of you have had negative experiences when it comes to trying to convince folks about the need for equity work? So I want you to drop it in the chat. Have you had experiences when it comes to convincing folks about the need for equity work? One thing that I know in my experience, thank you, Brooke. Hey, how you doing, Bridget? One thing that I've noticed, thank you. Y'all are feeling me in the chat, right? One thing I've noticed is that in these circles, like this Instagram community, the community on LinkedIn and Facebook, we tend to get it. We know that the problems that we're seeing are deeper than just the surface level, right? Because even I'm gonna tell y'all, I'm in Arkansas, I'm in Little Rock, and the school district here just, y'all gonna trip. Listen, they just dropped a new policy in the handbook or the code of conduct about students who are fighting. Now, I don't have it memorized off the top of my head. It literally just came to me to share this with you all, or I would have put it in some notes somewhere. But there has been so much fighting, so many things happening since the beginning of school, that now they have decided that after the first offense of you fighting, which I think you can get anywhere from 3 to 10 days, maybe depending on the severity, I don't know what those factors are. After that first offense, you are going, thank you for Rory, you are going to now be expelled and or sent to alternative school. Now, in my mind, I thought we're treating symptoms. We're not looking at how to get to the root. And maybe there's some root work happening. I'm not in the district on a district level, right? But from a parent perspective, because I got two babies in the Little Rock School District, I just thought to myself, we're treating symptoms. We're trying to put band-aids on what's going on instead of, if you're going to have that kind of solution, it must be coupled with some other supports to really hit the nail on the head about what is not occurring that will help meet the needs, right? So they can go fight somewhere else. That's what Brooke said over here on Instagram. Because I mean, think about it. If they're expelled, how many parents are going to be able to be at home to watch these children, to make sure these children are doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And then if they go to alternative school, who's going to teach the children in alternative school? We barely have teachers in the regular school. So how do we think in our minds that putting that kind of policy into play is going to work? But what tends to happen is we respond to symptoms, we respond emotionally, we respond in ways that really do not have big picture thinking in mind. So when I'm talking to you all, many of you connected and said, yes, I have experiences of getting some resistance, some pushback, right? From when I am trying to either as a teacher, maybe I know my good sis Brooke on here tried to get a lot. She tried to get me in the school. She's trying to do other things, and they're just like, nah, we don't want it. But from a leadership perspective, it's also disheartening when you are excited. Like for some of my sisters on the call, we met up at the State of Black Learning Conference. Super excited because we're in the trenches of equity, anti-racism work, anti-bias work. And we're like, this is what we need to bring into the schools we're working with, whether in contract form or whether we're in the teacher position or the leadership position. But the reality is you are going to get resistance. As we see what is happening, even in the world, right? It's not just the good old US of A. It's in the world, Craig. It's happening everywhere. There is resistance to humanity. And it's sad, but that is the reality. We've got to convince people about basic human rights. And it makes no sense. Some people, if they wouldn't have saw some of the turmoil happening over in Gaza, they wouldn't have believed it, right? I wouldn't have wanted to believe it. But the reality is, I know the way this world is governed by imperialism, colonialism, racism, all the isms and the phobias are what govern the power forces that create these wars that have nothing to do with the innocent civilians and babies. I've seen babies being killed and maimed and traumatized over in Palestine. Sadly, we're not enduring that level of atrocity, although we have endured things just like that in America, especially as Black folks, right? But we're experiencing that even in our realm as we're talking and bringing this conversation back to education. It's anytime you're trying to bring something equity centered. It could be culturally responsive teaching or leadership. It could be social emotional learning. It could be restorative. Just let me have a restorative circle. I was doing this in co-teaching through my coaching services. I was co-teaching with a teacher. That was one of our strategies that we use that I also love to do with those who hire me to come in and provide support to teaching staff. And we were doing restorative circles and were shut down after a few weeks because that wasn't on the agenda for learning. That wasn't deemed important. So I'm even based down to a 10-minute restorative circle. You get resistance, right? And I know firsthand what that resistance is like. And many of you put it in the chat. But the reason why, some of the reasons, right? Because this is such a complex issue that I want us to always know the things I'm saying are not unilateral or monolithic because I can't know every single person's experience, right? What I'm saying could be true in addition to your experience that I haven't voiced, right? So I want to make sure we understand that when we talk about, and I'm talking about the things we're talking about tonight, okay? But a lot of the issue is that teachers don't buy into this work, and I talked about this a little bit last week, is because we're not using those people who come in as leaders to bring in the new initiatives to the staff and present it. We're not presenting it through the lens of adult learning theory. We're just saying do this and it looks like another thing to do, right? So adult learning theory, some folks may not know about that. So let me briefly, very quickly, talk about adult learning theory. Now, it sounds just like pedagogy, but it's andragogy. So say that with me, andragogy. Okay, sounds like pedagogy, but it's andragogy. Andragogy is the adult learning theory that is centering the way adults learn and take what they've learned and put it into practice, right? So it's not just teaching stuff for the sake of information gathering, but it's about taking in new information, taking in new concepts, new ways of being. Sometimes because it's sometimes a lot of the work is in the mind, before it can be in the practice. And you're taking that information and giving it to them in a way that's going to build their buy-in, right? And it's going to build their capacity to actually take a risk. See, I talk about this a lot in culturally responsive teaching to the teachers. And it's the same concept when you talk about risk taking. Number one, equity is a risk. Why is it a risk? Because it's something new. It goes against the status quo. It's not a real risk for those who understand that it really works. But to those who hadn't had the experience of the profit or the benefit, should I say, I don't want to use capitalistic terms. So to the benefit, oh, excuse me. Sorry, y'all. To the benefit, to the benefit of equity work, we know that they think that it's a risk, right? Thank y'all, sis. They think it's a risk. Why? Because it goes against what you've known. Anything that's new, anything that requires us to unpack, unlearn, to be uncomfortable, to have to reckon in our souls with what we've been doing for 10 years, if we've been teaching that long, 15, some folks 20, 30 years. It's hard for them to reckon with something isn't so right with the way that I've been doing this, right? So when you talk about doing this work, it takes them having to understand, first of all, and this is for consultants, because I got a few of my consultant sisters on, or even for, especially for leadership who are in the trenches and you are in the building with these teachers every day. Okay, you've got to understand the 5 concepts of adult learning theory, also called what? Say it with me. Andragogy. Andragogy. Okay. So those 5 are really quick. Self-concept. So they've got to feel like they are treated as though they are capable of making decisions, right? So you're not passing down initiatives and telling them what to do, and all they do is carry out your decisions. They are wanting to be responsible for their decisions. Good adults, and I say good, meaning those who want to really do the work that they're assigned and paid to do, want that self-concept. Number 2, experience. Adults bring a wealth of experiences into the process. Even for me as a consultant now, I moved out of the school district, but I taught for over 10 years and was instructional leadership. When I come to your school, I'm not bringing fairy clouds. I'm bringing my experience. I was doing a guiding coalition meeting with the leadership staff on yesterday. I'm talking to them about what I did in my 8th grade class, teaching thesis statement, and how I ignited, chunked, chewed, and reviewed the work so students could actually conceptualize and then enact the work that we've been talking about when it came to writing their argumentative essays. So I wasn't just talking this talk. I showed them when I walked the walk and how it actually worked. And it's the concept or the framework that doesn't have to change much. Maybe a bit different with the delivery or with the way you connect with the young people, but the framework is still the same. So I bring my experience of over 10 years of in the classroom and in leadership and doing mentorship programs and all other kind of SEL work before it was called SEL work, bringing that into the building, doing it by myself. And that's why I'm talking to you about resistance tonight, is because sometimes that resistance puts you in a space where you feel like you are all alone by yourself doing this work. And then you become burnt out because you are now the equity lone ranger. I think I got this book. Hold on now. Figure out the book. This book right here, Street Data. Okay. Very good book. I'm not even done with it all, but it's an amazing book. And they go through some equity traps and tropes at the very beginning of the book. And one of those is being that equity warrior trap, right? It's the lone ranger of color. And what does it do? Being that person in your building where you are one of the only ones who is leading the charge for equity work, what do? You become burnt out. You become exasperated, and that was me, right? Some of us leave the field and it impacts education in other ways. But for those in the schools, we need you in the schools. And we don't need you to be so isolated and so frustrated and so burnt out and so sick of people talking noise about your kids or talking crap about their parents or not wanting to do the work and complaining and whining every other day. That's the resistance. But we've got to take into account as leaders, we got to be able to identify those pockets of resistance. So you've got to connect with what I'm talking about, which is andragogy. We tired, I know. And yes, it's an amazing book. I use it in my consulting work, right? I don't come up with all the things. I'm not a product of my own when I go into schools. I pick up books and I read practitioners, not just people giving me good theory, people that have done some work in the school buildings and how it has worked. And this is one of the good books that I love to read and pull from, right? Another one is one my good brother Bobby. Look, you see, I got stuff in it because I've been using it today, right? Culturally responsive school leadership for my people on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Here you see. You got to get into this research. You got to find out what's happening around here, right? What other good people are doing work in equity so that you know, number one, you're not alone, but number two, that it can be done. So back to andragogy. So number two was experience. You tap into the experience of the adults that you are working with. Number three, a readiness to learn. They become ready to learn. Oh, she's the bomb. They become ready to learn when they perceive the information or skills as immediately applicable. I'll review them for you, Bridget. As immediately applicable. So that means they have a readiness to learn. We're talking about andragogy for those just hopping in, right? Which is adult learning theory and how that needs to be a part of how you present new equity initiatives so you can tackle resistance with ease, right? It ain't going to be all the way easy. Everything's not going to be fairy tale and roses, but it's going to make your job a lot easier when you got a strategic plan about how to present your new equity initiatives, okay? So the readiness to learn. So let me review. Number one, self-concept, and there are 5. I'm just reviewing these 5 key principles real quick so I can get into the different pockets of resistance that you need to be able to know about so you can strategize how you're going to bring that culturally responsive teaching, social emotional learning, restorative practices or restorative justice or restorative circles, right? You can't just say you excited. You can't just bring it into your school and think everybody else gonna jump on the boat. No, they're not. If they're not in this kind of walking journey like you are, they don't get it like you. And you can't get mad and hide behind your emails or get an attitude or start being passive aggressive or acting actually petty, right? Or doing all these other things. They're not gonna get you anywhere. I've been in those environments. They're exhausting to your soul. It is exhausting. I've been the one trying. So I'm trying to teach y'all how I learned from my errors in all good intentions that I had to do the things that will help the babies thrive. Still got to look at my leadership. So I'm trying to help you out with that. So stay tuned with me. Number one, principle of adult learning theory is self-concept. So they want to be seen as responsible, decision-making adults. Treat them like that. Number two, experience. They bring a lot of experience. You need to tap into it. If you're not tapping into their experience, you're going to lose them. Number three, readiness to learn. They will take what you've given them, whether it's this could be a random PD. It don't even have to be about equity, right? Thank you, Fahari. If there is a new concept or something you are presenting to the people, if you cannot show them how it's going to apply to their real life situation, it sounds great. It was fun to do the little games with you in the PD, but after this, it's a wrap. It's out. And now the district has wasted more money that we don't have to waste on stuff that could have been good had you shown them how this is going to impact and apply to what their pain points are, the things and challenges that they're dealing with right now. Number 4, orientation to learning. Excuse me. So adults are problem centered, right? You get into content centered learning like when you pursue certain not habits, but certain hobbies. So for example, if you want to learn more about painting, you don't need to know how painting is going to apply to your life and what problems it's going to solve. If you like painting and you falling off, you're going to find a painting class and you go to it just for the content of that. That's not how it happens when we're talking about equity centered work. It needs to be revolved around a problem that they're facing right now. You can talk about classroom management, lack of student confidence, which shows up in their unwillingness to take the risk necessary to learn a new thing, right? Because that's the brain science. To learn new things, we have to take those intellectual risks. Okay. So if you revolve your learning around a problem and this new equity initiative or this expansion of it or this practice is going to help solve the problems, you're reeling them in. You still got to do more because you got to give them support. You got to show them the how and all that, but you're reeling them in. Last one, number 5, is motivation. They are motivated when they see the clear why and the relevance. Okay. So if you want them to buy in, you've got to, number one, as the leader, be bought in. You've got to actually be like, you know what, this thing can really actually work. I looked at some research studies from a colleague of mine who was in a similar school demographic as us, and they did this and that, and this happened. Although it took time. See, let me be very clear before I get into these pockets of resistance. We want quick fixes. We are such a microwave society. They have trained us well, especially with the algorithm. Some folks will hop in on this live as good as it is and hop right back out. Why? Because our attention can't sit for too long because we've been trained that if we're not instantly gratified with entertainment within 7 seconds, it's time to move on. Our brains have been trained, and it's a dopamine hit. I'm looking for the next entertainment, so I keep swiping. What's the next funny thing? What's the next entertaining thing? What's the next edutaining thing? Right? We've been trained. Hey, bro, I didn't see you come in. We've been trained to believe that our senses, our naturalness, who we are, must be consistently, hello, Rwanda, entertained. And if it's not instantly entertained, we move on. Our babies are doing it too. Right? We love to blame the babies. Oh, they so into social media. They always on the phone. Grown folks are too. Me included sometimes. I ain't throwing shade at just y'all. It's me. I have to consistently regulate myself. Sometimes I get carried away and I have to just put it in another room, in another space. Right? So we've got to think about when we're talking about equity, it's not going to be the microwave results. It's long game stuff. We playing the long game. And these are people's lives, so it's worth the long game. And a lot of times it's a real long game because you are trying to undo years of toxic patterns, years of traditionally marginalizing Black and brown students, years of suspending kids at the drop of a dime to just put them out. We used to put kids out of school on a sent home till their parent would come back. And it didn't match nothing in the handbook, but we just wanted relief. That was in my first years of teaching. That was a common practice at the school I was at. And it was all Black kids, literally maybe 2 or 3 white children. Like literally in the whole school. We are unpacking years. You think it's going to be done? I tell people, even when they contract with me, I've got a couple, praise God, year-long contracts. But I let them know, don't come to me like I'm your savior. Let's be clear. I can't save this school in 1 year. Number one, I can't save this school at all. My job is to come in and empower the leadership and the people there on what you need to do to unpack, to unlearn, thank you, to undo all the things, right? So as long as y'all know how long education has been around in America, I don't even know the year, so don't give me the line, but it's been at least 100 years for sure. So you think we gonna unpack it because you hired me and because I'm on here talking good and I've got the experience and the practice and no. And I let them know, you're not gonna put that pressure on me. But what I will do, if you work with me, if you tie in with me, if we work on how to identify these pockets of resistance and drown out the negativity, because let's be clear, I looked up this statistic. I'm going to see if I can find it in my notes or in some other notes I had. There are only, no matter, I don't care if you wrap this stuff up in $1,000 bills and put a bow on it. Some folks still ain't going to hop on the train. Some folks like it like this, subconsciously or consciously. Some people have been used. Here you go. Some people have been used to this. Okay. So they're gonna sit back and enjoy it. They're gonna get paid, cash these checks until they get ready to retire. I was at a never mind, I ain't gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that because this is a current client, so I gotta be good. So I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. But some folks, I will say this. Because if I say it, the client who I worked with yesterday, they will know exactly who I'm talking about. So I'm not gonna do that. Okay, I gotta be professional. However, some folks don't want to change. I will say that. Some people I know who have been in the schools for decades and they've been harming black and brown kids for decades. And they don't care because they getting their check and they work into retirement. And when they leave, they gonna go to their special spaces and live their life. Okay. So some folks, they're going to be absolutely resistant. And that is about 20 to 40% of your school. Now, these are approximate numbers, 20 to 40%. You got some on board that may be another 20 to 40%. So those two numbers are kind of the same, the on board group and the absolutely resistant group. So you are going to waste your time and your energy trying to pep up these folks who like, it ain't gonna never work. And you see them doing harmful stuff. Because I know we love to say public school and all these other schools are so great and all the teachers, yay, teachers, hurrah, teachers. But some of these teachers are absolutely toxic, absolutely harmful, absolutely don't care for our children, absolutely. And unfortunately, some of you principals can't get rid of them. So you can't spend all your energy on them. You got to look at the onboard group who believe in the importance of equity and are open to change and actively engage in the process, right? Even if they get a little frustrated, they're the willing group. But then this is the group you got to focus on. They're more of the larger group. They could be anywhere from 30 to 50%. This is the on the fence group. They are either neutral or undecided. Now, you know, when we talk about racism, we actually consider people who are complicit and silent. You know, you really against us. But that may not be the case all the time when we're talking about this work. They may have mixed feelings. They may have a few concerns. So they may be open to like, actually, I'm not against this, but I need to know a little more because I don't really know how this is going to work out in the logistical sense. Right? I'm working with a school. We did our coaching session today with the instructional coaches and the teachers who were in the cohort, and we're working all year long. And we are starting our teacher lab. So we're doing culturally responsive teaching through an inquiry base. And the teachers will be going into our cohort members' classrooms and seeing how they are activating student voice and choice. This is the stuff I want to do, right? I'll do your PDs. I'm not going to do one by itself, but I'll do your series of PDs. But I love to do the coaching because I love to get in there, get our hands dirty. I want to hear what your kids doing, how your families act. I want to come observe. I'll co-teach with you. Like that's my jam. It's what I love to do. But as we're talking about it, there were questions. So I've got a meeting on Monday because what do I have to do? As a leader who's bringing this thing in, I have to understand she's not resistant. She's just got questions. Everybody ain't against what you're trying to do. Sometimes we get so dang on defensive, and this is just in life, right? We get so defensive when folks not as excited as we are. We get so defensive when people don't want to hear. Thank you, bro. When people don't want to do it like you want them to do it, right? It's just for lack of fancier words, just say it plain, okay? But we got to remember sometimes people just need to know more. And so this is why I told you those 5 principles of adult learning theory. Now let's move into the last section. How to identify the pockets of resistance. That's what we're going to focus on for the last portion of this live. So let me check the comments real quick. Yes, we got to get those on the fencers off the fence. Thank you, sister. Exactly right. Yes, 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 yes. You know what, Brooke? I'm going to bring you to Arkansas. You can apply to my school because I'm going to build a school. And she said some principles we can't get rid of. Facts. Thank you, bro. Yes, yes. Hey, Jamila. Okay, I just want to check in on the comments and appreciate y'all for speaking in on the comments. Keep them coming, even if you got questions, right? Because some stuff I say, you may be like, what she mean by that? Pop them in there. You are safe here. Now, if you talk crazy to me, then that's another conversation because I'm gonna put you on out. But it's all love with my people, right? So pop your questions down. All right, I'm in your business, Bridget. It bees like that sometimes. All right, here are a few ways to identify pockets of resistance. I forget how much I love doing lives because y'all, sometimes I have to drag myself on here to do them because there are so many other things to do, but I actually enjoy them. All right, number one, the first way to identify, this is not really in order, but the first way I'll present is to listen actively. You need to be listening for the signs. Hey, squad, you need to be listening for the signs of resistance. So that means you can't stay in your office. You can't stay in your office. You can't stay behind the emails. You got to get connected to the people that you serve. And I say serve very intentionally. The people that, if you're a leader, even as a consultant, I talk to them just like I'm talking to you all. I don't present myself differently, right? Titles really don't bother me. People in different positions, while I honor their position, it doesn't affect how I show up with teachers, right? So I laugh and joke, and I challenge and do all the things, but I'm connecting. Why? Because if you're not connected to them in meetings, or you're not having informal conversations, if you're not hosting feedback sessions, how you gonna know what they're reluctant or skeptic about? You can't hide it, and you can't create a system or a space in your leadership where people are scared to talk to you. And I've seen that happen a lot of times. People don't want to speak out in the faculty meeting. They don't want to ask questions. They don't even feel like they can be inquisitive or even challenge what they hear because maybe they know insight that the principal doesn't know, or the assistant principal or the coach doesn't know. If your people are scared to talk to you, if you're not getting a lot of people conversing with you, like they're not initiating the conversation, that may be a sign that you're not as connected as you think you are. And I always encourage teachers and leaders, tap in with your people. Okay? Tap in with your people. Find out if you're easy to talk to, if they feel comfortable. But the point is, you need to listen actively, right? You need to listen actively. Brooke, that would alarm me. She said they tell me they like what I said later in private. I've had other adults, and I went live about this one time. We were in a parent meeting in the predominantly white district where my children were last year, and I said something that was a little bit rock the boatish, and then another Black woman came up to me and said she appreciated what I said, but didn't say nothing in the meeting. Didn't say you right, thank you for saying, just silent, like you okay with everything, and I'm the only one, which I don't mind being the only one, but don't get bold when we walk out the door. So I feel you, Brooke. All right, number two, engage in open dialogue. So that goes back to a little bit of number one. You listen actively. Now, how you can identify where the resistance is you've got to have this environment where they're comfortable talking to you, right? And they're comfortable telling you where their resistance is coming from. Number three, analyze meeting dynamics. So sometimes you may need to record your meetings, right? Not for anybody else, but for yourself. Because you can go back and look, are there people that are always the ones like Brooke in the comments and myself in other spaces who consistently challenge or question the changes? Are there different types of resistance? And we're going to talk about the types of resistance on my next live coming up. I think I'm going to do it Sunday. But are there other, types of resistance popping up? Right? You need to be able to know what the type of resistance is that you're dealing with. Because that, again, the point of all of this is to help you strategize as a leader so you can get the work from the paper to practice. If your equity work look good on paper and on them websites that I'm not going to say y'all, that people love to put out, where they've got these wonderful DEI statements or these beautiful mission and vision statements about equity, but then you go into class and it's a total mismatch. For what? It's given performative. We don't have any more time or space in the world for performance-based anything. Okay, we've got to thank you for her. We've got to get the work from paper to practice. That was a phrase me and my good friend Dana came up with as she works with multilingual learners. Get the work from paper to practice. So look at those meetings and see, and then that can help you to strategize. Okay, this may be one of my own defensors because they're asking some really good logistical questions. It's not super negative. It's truly curiosity. This is one of my own defense folks. Remember I told y'all about them a few minutes ago? So those are the people that I can sway. But if I let the negative get in their ear, if I let that other opposing side that I told you about, if I let them get in the way too much, then what's going to happen? Those people who were on the fence now become a part of the group that is in opposition. And we don't need any more in opposition. We need to move the folks on the fence to those who are now ready and willing to begin implementing this equity work. Number 4, review survey data. Number 1, you should be implementing survey data. If you are not implementing survey data, for example, in a PD or PLC, if you are not implementing, what do you think about the new proposal or the new initiative? What are your thoughts? How do you think you can be successful? What are some areas that we did not address? Hey, Dr. Jones, what are some areas that we did not address? How can we go about implementing this with more effectiveness in mind? Right? Figure it out. Talk to the people. So that's number 1. Make sure you got survey data and you use the data. Y'all, it's taking me everywhere because the thoughts keep popping up in my mind. Because sometimes we have us as leaders who implement this data and then we do nothing with it. And then you wonder why people don't want to fill out your surveys. For what? It's wasting my time. I've never seen how any of our survey data has been utilized and informed your decisions as leaders. And if they can't see the connection, or if you've not made the connection transparent, what better way to build connection? I saw that a lot of you all felt X way. So now we considered that and decided this. Or we would like to gather a focus group so that we can learn more from you. Please sign up so we can learn more effective ways to do this work, whatever the case may be, right? So this is this type of stuff I talk to with leaders when I'm doing work with them, because we've got to get into a holistic framework as leaders, okay? So if you're doing the survey data, review it and look for trends to figure out what this resistance is all about. And then number 5, seek the anonymous feedback. So sometimes that needs to happen. And then you offer, thank you, Katie, you offer people the opportunity to engage in the open, right? I'm in some of these Facebook groups and people have the option to post anonymously. And other folks really get upset about that. Like literally, I'm in a principals group on Facebook because I got to stay connected to figure out, what's going on, what kind of services can I offer, how can I help the people, how can I stay connected? So I connect in a lot of leadership and teacher groups, and they don't like that. But unfortunately, some people do not feel safe enough to give feedback because, one, there may be a history of revenge, or what's the other word? Maybe revenge, or maybe it's another word. But there is this idea that maybe if I say something, then I'm going to retaliation. There it is. I'm going to be retaliated against for giving my feedback and not going along with the crowd. So do the anonymous feedback and then open it up to, okay, I want to get a small focus group so that I can have a conversation about the feedback that I saw. Or if you'd like to have a one-on-one meeting, let's set that up. You got to do the work, leaders. We've got to do the work. It's the work that works. I've tried it. I'm doing it with the leaders that I coach that are in my Leading with Soul cohort that will be available to the world in January. But right now it's just with my private contract. But yes, we're doing that kind of work. Number 6, monitor body language. So I put this in some of my posts because I've seen this firsthand. I've experienced it. And that's why soul work is so important, y'all. If you're not doing your own emotional intelligence and emotional resilience work with your own soul, baby, them eye rolls, the head changing, the folks in their phone who could not be interested in what you're talking about or who got so much other work to do on the computer, it will deflate you if you are not doing your own soul work. Okay, so I want to drop that dime in there real quick. But make sure you're paying attention to body language, because sometimes when you see those eye rollings, the real loud breath work, it's an indicator of resistance. So you can't get an attitude with the people that's rolling their eyes in the staff meeting. Is it going to help you get to the equity work? That's what you always got to think in your mind. Is my response going to help me push the equity work? Because equity work has to be done with heart, body, mind, and soul. It ain't a checklist. So you can't get these folks into compliance for equity work. It doesn't work like that. Don't laugh at me, bro. It doesn't work like that. Okay? It has to be a complete, and maybe not a full, like, okay, I'm all 100% in, but there has to be a level of readiness and willingness for this. So look at their body language. Number 7, review teacher interactions. So watch how they are observing with their colleagues, with other students and administrators, and when they're implementing this new thing. Because I'm guilty of this. Some stuff they had us doing made no sense. And I would tell my students, it's horrible to say, but I would tell my students, y'all, I don't even understand why we're doing this, but they got us doing it. And some of the stuff just didn't make no sense. Like it was for nothing. But they had us doing certain, district would bring down certain practices. That's where it mostly came from. District level staff would have teachers, or they give it to the principals, and then the principals have to tell us. And so I get it, leadership. I get it. Before I left the school district, I was in instructional leadership, and I was making so many phone calls out and talking to so many families. They was like, "You're not the principal." I was like, "No, ma'am, it never will be. Not an aspiration of mine." Bless them, because that work is tough. When you got to hand down stuff that you don't even understand why we're doing it, that's tough. And so what happens, you're going to have teachers who may not want to do the work, and you'll see their lack of enthusiasm when it's time to put it into practice. Pay attention. Number 8, examine student performance data. See where the intention is not meeting the impact. So it can manifest in their teaching practices. Okay. You can see if they are not doing. I have one, I'm going to say client, I'm not going to tell who it is. I have one client who I'm working with, and they have tried to do restorative circles, through another company or whatever, and that's all good. But they're doing it so chop blocky. And what I mean by that, it's like you got a few people that's doing it. It's not being done every day, and it's not in every space. It's like an advisory type space, which some people do use advisory for those restorative circles. However, the kids know. This teacher has told me the kids are like, we enjoy your circles because when Miss So-and-so do it, she's so fake. Kids they don't have very much filter. They get a little bit of filter. They don't have very much filter, especially if they're comfortable with you. They're going to tell you the honest to God truth. So-and-so is fake. The way she's saying it, she don't even care about us. She's just doing it because principal so-and-so made her. We don't need, and then she tried to, they're going to tell the truth. They're going to tell the truth. So when I say examine student performance data, yes, you can be looking at grades and you can be looking at numbers, but talk to the babies. They ain't always lying now. Sometimes they lie. I've experienced some kids lie. I got 2 children. They lie. I lied when I was a kid. We get it. But for the majority, especially when you have multiple children telling you something about an individual teacher, we got that. It should be an alarm going off. There should be something happening in our leadership minds, right? Because there's some resistance going on to your equity work. Another way, look at attendance and participation. This was yesterday, y'all, but I ain't gonna talk about it. Monitor teacher attendance and participation in the PDs that are related to the equity initiatives. You can see resistance. Oh, I saw resistance yesterday. Now, it wasn't towards me. I don't take it personal, and it could have been towards me. However, it doesn't matter for me. I'm gonna come in and do my work. And I'm gonna do it with joy because I actually really love this work that I do. But there was some resistance when people leaving out, staying gone for long periods of time, not showing up to the meeting, texting other folks during the meeting, um, laughing. Just adults are something else. I have seen it all. We talk about these kids not engaged and paying attention. Baby, look at us in the faculty meeting and let it be about something we don't believe in and we're resistant to. Just watch it. Pay attention to your faculty meetings. Get one of your staff members, one of your leadership team to monitor body language, attendance, engagement, participation. Get one of your leadership staff. And then they yell at the kids, Brooke. Exactly. It flabbergasts me so much. But get one of your people to actually look at that and pay attention to that. Right. And then you will see where some of your pockets of resistance are. And then you can see who maybe they've got something else going on because life be lifing, right? Sometimes people have other situations that are taking their mind off of something that they might actually be interested in. But in this time, right? So again, we've got to be connected to know what the normal baseline behavior is of the staff and teachers that we engage in. So when we see something different, we know when it's really time for us to be curious and to connect and see how we can offer support, because sometimes people's life has a lot of challenges and things that take their mind off of what they really should be focused on. All right, let's keep going. Almost there, because I'm going to finish this thing as close to 7 as possible. All right, I already talked about having one-on-one meetings, right? Encourage self-reflection is another. So getting your staff members to engage in that type of thing is very important. Looking at their own beliefs, looking at their own bias, looking at their own attitudes, right? Getting them to look at their things, and even Katie to unpack their normal baseline behavior and connect it to what belief system is actually fueling the way you show up as an educator or as a leader. Right? That's the soul work that they don't want to spend time on, that we think is not as important because we just want to do our jobs and go home. But baby, when you in education and you dealing with other humans, I don't care if you in healthcare or if you are in customer service, when you're dealing with other humans, you got to do the soul checks. What do I believe? What are my biases? How do they impact my attitude and how I talk to people, how I engage with folks, what I believe is worth my time and attention? It all matters, right? It all matters. Okay. Last few, review past resistant patterns. So, are there patterns or certain people who may display these patterns that consistently resist change? And what does that mean? Because at the bottom, just like we say for the children, when children are displaying certain behaviors, it is indicative of a need that has not been supported or met. Now, as adults, there are certain needs we're responsible for all on our own, right? But there are certain needs that we should be supported by our instructional coaching leaders, by our administrators, by our principals, right? So where you can fit in, that may be something good to pay attention to, right? What are these patterns and why are they consistently? Maybe they started off very good at buying into the equity things that we're doing, but it's wavered. It's went off some, right? Lastly, last thing, utilize the data, right? And we kind of already talked about that, but consult with your peers and see where do they have experience in identifying, resistance. I got tongue tied. But where do they have experience? So that means you can talk to fellow administrators, not in your same school, just other people who do your work and they're in other schools or other spaces, other leaders, right? Find out how they've dealt, other consultants like myself who does this work with leaders, but also experienced it in my time in instructional leadership. So I'm not just going to give you stuff off the paper. I'm telling you what really happened with me and best practices and even things that I did that did not show best practices, right? And so now, once you got all of that, you can bring all your data, your survey data, You'll want to, all this stuff I've talked about, y'all, identifying these pockets of resistance, all of this is data. You got qualitative and quantitative. It's a mixed method study, right? Mixed methods for those who went on up a little bit in your graduate studies. It's the combination of qualitative, meaning the stories, the anecdotes, the surveys, the focus groups, the one-to-one interviews or conversations. That qualitative plus quantitative, your numbers, your attendance performance, academic performance, behavior performance, anything that you can numerate, and you combine them for a holistic street data, right? That's where street data comes from, right? It's putting them all together so you can be a street scholar, right? Dr. Jones came in, who created these shirts based off her book, but that's what you want to do. Okay. So I went over these things. If you miss any of them, feel free to go back and kind of toggle through the live replay that will be up after we get off of here. So you can have these pockets of resistance. Because remember, resistance can take various forms. It can be loud or it can be quiet. Some people talking they little cliques. You know, we got cliques all up in schools, honey. They big time. We have them in a lot of spaces other than schools, but we talking about schools today, right? Cliques show up everywhere. So sometimes people have their little conversations, their hushed conversations. You can see the resistance there. You see it in individual folks and their body language and how they respond, and are they actually doing the thing or not? Do they got an attitude? Like, but again, like I said, and Katie brought it out in the comment, you got to know their normal baseline behavior. Know the folks who are in the percentage of on board, excited to do the equity work because they get it. The ones who are on the fence, which is your largest number, because they may be willing, they just need more information. More logistical and technical support is often what it is, because sometimes it's not that they don't want kids to thrive. They need to see how this works in real life. It sounds great in theory, but what does this look like when I'm in a class with 25 kids? How does that work? And if you can provide that support, now you get them somewhere. And remember, you won't have all the answers. This equity work is not a clear shot of, oh, you come in doing equity now, all the kids are going to be great. No, ma'am, you're dealing with humans. Humans show up differently day to day, some of them minute to minute, hour to hour. And you're dealing with little humans, and I mean all of them under 18, really what the brain stopped developing around the mid, 20s, 21, 20, whatever the age is. You got brains that are still developing. So you got to exercise patience. But knowing these pockets of resistance, and once you know them and identify them, now you can create proactive strategies on what you're going to do to address them and promote them. Now, here's the gag, and then we're going to get off. I am going to be, thank you, Brooke, 25. I am going to be having a master class, a free master class where we are going to go into the specifics of, let me pull it up, y'all. It's at the link in my bio. And for those who are on every place but Instagram, it should be in your comments. But we are going to have this free masterclass, and it is going to be in November on a Sunday at 6 o'clock, decoding the strategies to overcome resistance in education. These are effective approaches for educational leaders to address the 10 types of resistance, and we're going to talk a little bit about them next week, and foster a culture of equity and inclusion. Okay. If you don't know how to do this, nothing else will matter, because your work won't get off the ground. It won't come off the paper. Your work will stay on the paper and it will never go into practice. You'll have a couple people that do it, but your whole school culture and your whole school climate will not shift nor change. So click the link in my bio for those on Instagram. That free masterclass is there and you can get your spot. The spots are limited. I don't like having hundreds of people because I can't connect with y'all like that. So get your spot so you are there. And then for those who are on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, it should be in the comments. If not, send me a message. I'll send you the link. Thank you all for joining. I do, Brooke. So Brooke asks, do you think these strategies can work for teachers trying to shift the culture? If you are a teacher who aspires to be a teacher leader, and it doesn't have to be a title that somebody else gave you, maybe you do have influence with other teachers. Because sometimes y'all can, I won't say unionize like officially, but thank you, Katie, y'all can get together and change some things in your individual classrooms. Then you get the data, show where it has impacted students, bam, take it to your leadership. Now, unfortunately, some places they crazy enough to even refute the data that's right in their face. And at that point, you just can only do what you can do until you decide to either go somewhere else or keep serving the babies that come in your rotation in your class. Right. But in the case of understanding how this resistance pops up and working just amongst your teachers, or maybe you can get some instructional coaches on board to see how this works and get them to maybe implement. Of course it can. So you're welcome, right? It's for leadership, but teachers, you're welcome. You are always welcome because the work works. Okay. So again, click the link in my bio. I think my next live is going to be this Sunday. Not I think I know. It's going to be this Sunday. Hey, Mom. So join me on this Sunday at 6 o'clock. I've been doing good with my voice. I normally don't do Sundays, but my voice has been great. So I'm going to host this live, and we're going to talk about the spectrum of resistance types. Okay. All right, y'all have been amazing in the comments. Y'all been turning up for me. Share this live with some people. Go on and send it to them real quick. Send it to like 5 folks. Click that little arrow down in the bottom right. Those here, share it with somebody in their messages, and let them watch it. It's only an hour, and get you some good insight because we got to strategize now. It's a war against equity, y'all. It's time to strategize. Can't keep letting these folks defeat us. We got to get this work, okay? Get this work in. Y'all have a great day. Have a great weekend. I will talk to you all on Sunday. Bye.